Performance Institute, here with Kevin McGovern, the owner of Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, Dr. Kevin McGovern. I sometimes fail to say that.
Okay.
And of course, with us every week is the fabulous Ryan Gagne Fructis,
Gagne
producer
Fruity.
extraordinaire. Yes.
Yes.
So
Gagne
I
Fruity.
prefer Gagne West.
yeah, I know you do.
West?
That's why I say Gagne Fructis.
Oh, why Gagne West? I like that too. Oh, is that a
Like Kanye?
Gagne? Gotcha.
Kanye, like Kanye.
Oh, I got you now. I understand.
Also on this webinar broadcast is Jason Tesler, which will be, why are you playing that back? Sports Therapy. Kevin, what are you doing? You good?
What's that? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, you're playing. We could hear you playing that back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, that's my producer supposed to handle that. We have a low budget show here.
So I think we want to kick this off. I mean, it's old news to everybody at this point, but we do want to touch on, because we did mention it in last broadcast about the Super Bowl. And of course, predictions were correct. Mine was actually wrong. I actually thought Kansas City was going to win despite wanting to root for Tampa Bay, but Tom Brady.
I thought you picked Tampa Bay. No?
No, I was pulling for Tampa Bay, but I just couldn't see them beating Kansas City. And boy, was I wrong. I was wrong. I was glad to be wrong.
I was really wrong about the Masters commercial.
Yeah. The under won that one. So yeah, Tom Brady did indeed win his 7th Super Bowl. We witnessed, continued to witness greatness. Unbelievable, just the things that he's done on a football field. It's video game like. It's gotten to the level of silly. It was funny at the end of the game. I don't know if everyone saw the handshake between he and Mahomes, and I don't know if it's baseball or what it is, or by time in the Marines, but I got pretty proficient in lip reading, and you can tell he comes up to Brady and he says, "You're a legend." That was the first thing he said to him. He says, "You're a legend," and indeed he is. And thank God we didn't hear any passing of the torch references or anything like that. That would have been the worst part of Kansas City winning, in my opinion. And the talks of, is he a Hall of Famer already, and all that other crap. So yeah,
everyone catch the radio broadcast call of the streaker.
No,
I've heard
Kevin Harlan doesn't he's like talking like he's at the 30, the 20. It's like so it's so funny. He's like, keep your pants on, be a man. Oh, it's hilarious.
So did you see the thing with that? Like, I don't know if it's real. I don't even know if it's been sort of like debunked already, but
yeah.
The rumor was, well, it wasn't even a rumor at first. People go, geez, well, there was I think it was like plus 1,500 or something crazy for, a streaker coming on the field.
Oh,
and,
really?
Oh yeah. And so people were talking about, well, it was probably him. Like, why wouldn't you bet that if you're going to be at the game and then just go do it? It's going to cost you like, 500 or whatever and bail.
Yeah. What's the charge for that?
I think it's got to be a misdemeanor.
It was $1,000.
It's $1,000. Yeah, it's $1,000 penalty. It's a trespassing. He's not allowed, in theory, not allowed into an NFL stadium again.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but the Bovada and the sports books have all shut this down. So he allegedly placed $1,000 bet on the odds, that there would be a streaker at the Super Bowl. And then he and a friend ran on field. One friend ran on as a kind of a distraction. And then this guy made it onto the actual field and
he scored.
Yeah.
So
he was set to collect $375,000, but he couldn't keep his mouth shut and had to go brag about the fact that he made the bet. So
there's pictures of him on Instagram, like with his fist in the air. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
The bet was canceled, taken off the board, so he was not able to collect, and he's out $1,000.
Oh wow, that is good news. See, that's why we have you around. That's hilarious.
But that is like, that is fixed. That's fixing a bet, right? And of course, that's not legal. Right. You can't do that.
Right.
If he were smarter, I think he probably should have had somebody else do that.
Yeah, should have paid
cut him in on it. Yeah,
paid someone $1,000, $2,000 to do it.
Yeah. Pay your bail plus whatever. Yeah, exactly. But smart enough to think of it and not smart enough to pull it off. Yeah. So anyway, since the game, we've been hearing a lot about these sort of not weird, but interesting tidbits about Tom Brady and his likelihood. I think if he makes it to the Super Bowl next year, he will be in the Super Bowl 50% of his career, correct? Like
next
on average
if
every
he were
year.
to make it, if he were to make it next year, he'll have been to the Super Bowl in 11 out of his 22 seasons. Right now,
That's unbelievable.
10 out of 21, which means is a 47.6% chance to make the Super Bowl. And in comparison, Steph Curry of the what team? Bay Area. What do they go by? Golden State Warriors.
Golden State.
His career 3-point percentage is 43.3%. So Brady has a better chance of making the Super Bowl than Steph Curry does of making a 3-point shot.
That's really good. That's really good.
And that's not even to get into how many championship games he's been. And I think next year, if he makes it, it'll be 75% of his career. And to think that, so now Brady has more Super Bowls, of course, than any other franchise in NFL history.
Yep.
And in the championship games, I think it would be up to, I think this was 14, if I remember correctly. Next year would be 15. So yeah, just insane what he's done. He's making it look so easy. Patriot fans, us New Englanders who are Patriots fans, have become so spoiled. And by the way, we deserve every bit of it. Okay. Cause I was a Pats fan in the 80s. I wasn't one of these, like, how many kids were like Giants fans or, Cowboys fan. Look at Ryan's like,
I'll be the first to admit, as a kid, I was a huge Cowboys fan because A, the Patriots were terrible, but B, the Cowboys were on everywhere. So you always saw Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Moose Johnson, Jimmy Johnson, the coach, all those guys. That was like, they were the face of the NFL for so long. So that's what I grew up.
And C, you're a millennial. So
right, aren't you like 10 years old? You're like
exactly.
15 years old.
At that point, come on, I was born in 84. I'm on the cusp. I'm
84. Oh, wow.
Well,
Okay.
I'll say this. That's a millennial move to just go to the front. I was not a Cowboys fan. I despised the Cowboys, loved my Patriots, but they stunk. But, we had Andre Tippett, right? So we got to watch a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the best owners ever in Victor Kiam. Come on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One in 15.
One of the dumbest.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, he wasn't the dummy. It was Sullivan who was the dummy. That's how Kraft ended up owning the Patriots. That's another story, a long story for another time that people outside of New England would not care about. But yeah, we were just become super spoiled to because of what this guy's done. And then I was saying to we were watching as a family, and I said to my daughter and wife and my son, but he could give two craps. But it's amazing. Like the 1 year that the Patriots aren't in it, we have Tom Brady. It's almost like we're in it, vicariously through him and Gronkowski. Yeah, it was like all Patriots. And the other thing too,
and
Gronkowski 2 touchdowns
for a game, right? AB.
Yeah, AB. He's a Patriot. Once a Patriot, always a Patriot.
Hey, so one other kind of crazy stat: Tom Brady has now played in 18.2% of all Super Bowls ever
played. Yeah.
Almost 20% of all of the Super Bowls have featured Tom Brady.
1 in 5.
You guys caught there was on that 4-letter sports network. We like, as our producer likes to call it. There was a little back and forth between Teddy Bruschi and Kendrick Perkins. Did anyone pick that up?
No.
No.
So I caught the tail end of it, and the argument was that Perkins was saying that LeBron or basketball is much. Having the titles because it's a harder road. You've got all these 7-game series, and Teddy just shut him up by saying, "Dude, the Super Bowl in every playoff is every game is the 7th game. Like if you lose, you have a bad first game, you're out.
Winner go home.
So every game is a game 7.
And a guy like LeBron can take over a game a lot. He has a lot more influence in a game than someone like Brady. You're one of 5 guys on the court.
Sure.
You don't have to pass it. You don't have to hand off to anybody. No, that's Bruschi absolutely wins that argument, in my opinion.
And people can knock this, but it's never going to be done again. It's just, it can't. It
should never been done in the first place. It's like we're like watching Banana Land live in color.
No one talks about his health. Dude, he's it's not like there's a bubble around him, right? Say what you want about what he does, but it's working.
Speaking of, what was the stat you brought up about the Hall of Fame QBs? What was that? You told me that when it was
they had like all the Hall of Fame QBs are recently getting in or younger than Brady.
They're going into
right?
the
Or
wrong.
like the same, like if they're 44, 45, they're getting in the Hall of Fame and Brady's still playing. You know what I mean?
That's amazing. That's
You know.
absolutely amazing. And then the last one I wanted, because I love these things. Ryan told me about. I don't know if you remember it, Ryan. So I don't know bungle it, but that there's only like 3 quarterbacks in the history of football who have been in as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady has lost.
Yeah.
Oh,
another
that's
fact
such
check.
a good stat.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Is that was
yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yep, that's
such a good
exactly.
stat.
There's only it was 3 or 4. I think it's 3 quarterbacks have played in the amount of Super Bowl games that Tom Brady has actually lost.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Tom Brady has also played in and won a Super Bowl in 3 different decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
crazy.
Amazing.
Just preposterous.
Yeah. So those goes go on, and I'm sure people keep finding other cool things to compare it to. But we could go on. I could go on all day about my beloved TB12.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll halt it there, and we actually want to move into our topic of the day. Our topic of the day, as Kevin mentioned, is we're going to be talking about injuries and how you know if your player is injured. Kevin's going to talk a lot about this, and from the medical side, I'm going to chime in about things that we see as instructors and coaches that may indicate that a kid's injured. Might be something mechanical that he cannot or she cannot do. If they can't load into their hip properly or something like along those lines, and also what the metrics might show if to indicate that somebody might be hurt. But before that, what we want to do to kick this off is our super fan, Jason Tesler, is on with us, and his daughter, Jason's daughter, plays in our softball program, the Renegades. This is her first year with us, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the history of his daughter, and she's been dealing with a knee injury for now several years, 2-3 years, Jason.
Yeah, so it was May of 2019 when the injury first happened, and she was catching. And of course, we know how wonderful all these travel programs are. There was a girl up at bat who would let go of the bat every time she swung and went flying. So her head coach, Allie's head coach at the time, begged the umpire, talk to these coaches. This can't happen. So the 4th time she did it, the bat hit the side of Allie's knee. Allie was catching at the time. So, a couple weeks go by. Obviously, we're expecting swelling. Sure. It's sore. And, a month, 2 months, 3 months, she's really complaining about it. And this girl can tolerate pain,
No.
So we go to her doctor. Oh, it's fine. She'll just take some Advil, Tylenol for the pain, and it will eventually go away. Fast forward to the winter time, of 2020. It's now Osgood Slaughters. It's not her knee. It's not the side of her knee where she's saying it hurts. Oh, it's the front. It's Osgood Slaughters. So braces and more Tylenol, more Advil. MRI. We had 2 MRIs on it. The first one, the guy said, yep, nope, it's Osgood Slaughters. Nothing's wrong with the knee. And the second one, and this is where, Kevin got a chuckle out of it, kind of, is the guy said, oh, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. If she wants the pain to stop, tell her to stop catching. I was like, you want me to tell my 11-year-old to stop playing a position that she loved to play?
And hold on, let me stop you there a second, because that is kind of hilarious, because I know it's at Allie's expense, so I apologize for that, but it said like the joke of like, hey doc, it hurts when I do this.
Don't do that.
Oh, don't do that.
Right.
Stop doing that.
That's the old adage, yeah.
So it just all. So then at the point we've spent all this money, braces, knee braces and MRIs. So it's finally like, okay, Allie, are you sure it's really hurting? Yeah. Are you so used to the pain? It's like everybody says it's okay. And then, Mike, I spoke to you about it. You told me to get in touch with Kevin. I think, Kevin, you hopped her up on the table. You asked which knee it was. And then in 20 seconds, you're like, yeah, here's a pocket of swelling right here. That's why it hurts. Floored. I immediately went to feeling like the worst father possible. because after almost 2 years,
Which you're only moderately the worst father.
Yeah.
Right.
thank you, I appreciate
Right.
it. I appreciate it.
Allegedly moderately the worst, right?
You know, and then within 30 seconds you located it, and now, you know, I asked her this morning, I told her that I was going to come on and talk with you guys about it. She said day in and day out, the pain on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 7 for her.
Wow.
It was hard to walk, you know, she couldn't run, she didn't want to go to practice, you know. And today, Kevin, you've been working with her for a month maybe now?
I think
Maybe
we've done 4 sessions, really.
4
4 or
sessions,
5
okay.
tops, yeah.
And today she said she woke up and the pain was maybe a 1. It's like, it's been like that for the last week and a half, she said.
Wow.
You know, she's like, I almost forgot how bad it used to hurt. So you know, so what do you do?
Yeah, that's it. So Kevin, how does this happen? I mean, because this is right. Because you could say, well, this is anecdotal. This is one story, but you know, doing what we do, we see this stuff all the time, and it's either a complete misdiagnosis or it's what they did with Allie, which was like, hey, this is in your head. Like, get it out of your head. You know, it's mental. You're fine. You know, and you know what happened to Jason because of that is like he told me he started saying to her like, Allie, everyone says it's fine. Doctors, people have gone to school for medicine for several years have all said it's fine. It's fine, right? And so then, like, yeah, I can imagine, like, you feel like a pretty crappy parent after that, right? I mean, we're supposed to be there to protect our kids, and we're supposed to also, we've been taught to listen to those experts, right? So what gives?
Well, apparently you two are crappy parents. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
No.
I just got a text today from one of my high school buddies about his daughter. It's the same thing. Everybody is site of injury focused. Okay. So Allie's knee is hit with a bat, right? So everyone goes, oh, well, that's the trauma. Yes, it's the trauma. But the trauma is the straw that, as the old adage, the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay. And what was wrong with Allie and what is wrong with many adolescents is they don't have good brakes, right? Glutes, hamstrings, back extensors. So
Brakes, you mean decelerators.
Yeah, the decelerators, right? So those muscles are decelerating poorly, but everything's okay until there's a chip in the armor. Boom, this bat comes back, hits her knee. Now we've got a trauma. We've got this irritation of this knee, and we keep not braking correctly, right? So, I mean, you know, we've got this. I mean, just think you got a tack in your shoe, right? And you're not, you know, it still keeps, because you're not landing properly. It still keeps rubbing, still keeps irritating. The knee still keeps getting in pain because you haven't fixed the problem. But, you know, doctors then will look at, well, the bat was the problem. No, the bat's not the problem. The bat was the straw that broke the camel's back. The problem is her decelerator muscles that's not allowing that knee joint to heal because it keeps pounding it. And to me, what really drives me insane. So just look at the cost, right? We had talked about this a couple shows ago. I mean, I don't know what an MRI costs now. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, right? So let's just say that's $8,000. You just spent not Jason, but the insurance company just spent $8,000 on 2 tests, and they're like, you know what I mean? Like the doctor's still, because they're focused. They're not focused. They're focused on what, not the why. What happened? Bad hit knee. Why? Because these decelerators are not allowing the knee to heal. And that's the simplicity of it. And that's what we started working on. I was like, yep, pocket of swelling here. But you can ask Jason. I didn't start working on her knee joint. I started working on her buttocks.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And I think,
which she didn't have. Like, I go make a contraction. She had nothing. The largest muscle in the body, your brakes, your glutes, both your accelerator and your brakes, she had 0. And guess what? She's 11. She's supposed to have 0, essentially, right? I mean, it's not supposed, but now she's got an injury, so that if someone's glutes on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 2, you can fine. But when you're injured, that 2 now has to be a 12 in strength to protect that joint.
So Jason, when you took her to a regular doctor or an ortho, whatever it was, and they did these MRIs, what were they saying? Were they saying that's a clean MRI? There's nothing wrong, or?
Yep. Yeah, they said it was clean. They said there's nothing structurally wrong with the knee.
They're looking like
and
this.
yeah,
Television.
and they said they used the Osgood Slatters as
a
the
fallback.
reasoning why her knee keeps hurting. And they said, oh, this could last for years until she's done growing.
Which, just for the record, it wasn't hurting in the Osgood Slatters area. So Osgood Slatters, for those people who don't know, is really if you feel your knee, you feel your your tendon of your right below your kneecap, and you keep going south, you'll feel this bump. That's your tibial tubercle. And Osgood Slatters, that thing is like inflamed and larger. Allie doesn't have that. Her swelling is over in the median, the median is nowhere near there.
Yep. So they said that she was compensating for the Osgood Slatter and either walking on the inside or outside of her foot, and that's what was making her knee hurt. And they basically said, use a brace and just pretty much invest in Advil or Tylenol.
Right.
That's it.
Make the pain, make the symptoms go away. Not going to fix the problem. Right. So now I thought it was weird, and this is just my experience. We've had several kids over the years in our program because we work with mostly boys, all boys really, who have had Osgood Slatters, and it was odd to me that it was one knee. I have never heard of Osgood Slatters in one knee. Is that technically possible?
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible, but again, Osgood, whatever it is, Osgood Slatters, it's a chink in the armor, right?
Right.
So you got to go up what's called the kinetic chain. We remember from after school specials, the foot bone connected to the shin bone, or Saturday morning, whatever it is. So that's your kinetic chain, right? So you have your skeleton, which I tell people that's your building, right? And the muscles around it is all the strapping, all the beams that keeps that building strong and moving correctly. And when there's a chink in the armor, you have to look up the chain as to why that's happening. Why? Don't just look and say, "Oh, well, it's Osgood Slatters." Okay, great.
This is interesting because I'm thinking about you see this happen a lot of times with like trades in Major League Baseball or free agent signings. They go and get these physicals, they get checked out, and they get cleared. MRIs are clean. He's in great health. And then, a month later, he blows his rotator cuff.
Right.
He tears a labrum or something like that. I mean, so I'm assuming that this is way more prevalent than just this one story of Jason. Like how in today's world, why don't doctors know? Like I'm sure they know that it's not just the injury, right? That it's that there's the this total body health. There's being structurally sound, just like a building, right? I mean, they've got to know. No, do they just look past it? Do they don't have the time? What is it?
That's a really good question. So I think that number one, for years, doctors are number one across the board threatened by physical therapists across the board. Okay. And they don't understand exactly what we do as a profession. And we essentially would take money out of their pocket. Everything comes down to money. I don't care what anyone says. It comes down to cash. Okay. You go into these big ortho practices, right? You walk in, they're all, it's like going to the Taj Mahal. There's 500 employees that go there, right? But the only people you're billing for is the actual doctor, right? So it's just this, windmill, this conveyor belt of patients, right? But you have to look at, how people move. And doctors right now have gone, when I used to, I blew my knee out in 1986, right? You go to one orthopedic, he handles it all. Now there's a knee guy, a shoulder guy, a wrist guy, a back guy, a toe guy, right? That just specialize in just that area, and they don't look at anything else, right? And you'll have doctors, like I've seen people have had back surgery, knee replacements, where these doctors don't refer these patients to physical therapy. It just starts, I don't know, in the OBGYN, right? Let's give a C-section. Right. Let's take our child out, and then sew it back up and send these women along. And then, 3 years later, these women are wondering why they have intractable back pain. I know, because someone just, ripped the cyclops out of your, sewed it back up and sent you home.
Right. That's crazy. Jason, let me ask you. Yeah. So through this whole experience, right, and now having, taken Allie to Kevin and had her fixed up. Like, so how does this change your, like, how you view injuries, right? And sort of like, does it change your outlook on like what your protocol would be? Like if, you know, she gets hurt tomorrow, we taking her to a doctor and send up an ortho appointment. Did it change that outlook for you? Does you think it's just sort of like an anomaly?
Yeah, it has in a way, because it's like, speaking with Kevin, he said something that, resonated with me is, you go to see them to help fix an injury, right? But people don't listen to them on how to prevent injuries.
Right,
they're only there to do what the doctor says. Oh, my doctor said I needed to come for physical therapy. So honestly, I would probably, if this happens again, and my daughter, she's accident prone to begin with. I would probably, reach out to Kevin. I would probably reach out and see, make sure that there's nothing underlying, underlying versus, looking through a microscope at one particular area.
Right.
I think that's huge. And I think a lot of families, again, since I've been through this, a lot of people should stop looking at the norm of, okay, she sprained her ankle, let's go to the doctor. Because what are they going to tell you? Ice and Advil and Elevate. What is, go a step further, go beyond that, seek out different opinions, or, find somebody good that you trust. What's bad is her mother works at this ortho place as a nurse.
Oh boy.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And when she told me that the ortho said, stop catching and it will get better, I lost my mind. I was like ready to drive up there. I was like, I want the report. I want an appointment with him. I want to ask him, I'll use clean language, but what the hell is he thinking? You know what I mean? It's like, how can you, whether her mother worked there, how can you justify giving that as an answer?
Right.
Such
a lazy type of, like, as if you couldn't have drawn that conclusion yourself if you had no advice whatsoever, right? Well, I guess it's just not catching anymore. And so how prevalent is this? I think that's what this leads to. Is this really prevalent, Kevin? And like sort of segues into another thing we want to talk about, which was, how if your kid's injured, right? Talking about how I forget how you said it, if it was joint related versus muscle related, etc. Right. So how do you know? Because you can't obviously just take the word of every doctor.
So let me answer your first question about the medical system, right? We are ingrained we get hurt, go to doctor. But doctors do two things, right? What are the two things they do?
Operate and medicate. That's
it. So if I go there for a sprained ankle, right? What are they going to do? All right, they're gonna look an X-ray and they're gonna do this. But as a physical therapist, I can tell whether a joint needs to have an X-ray or an MRI. But guess what? We can't do. Order either one of them in the medical system. I don't want to read them, right? I don't want to read them. That's not I want to be able to say, hey, Mike, your daughter. Yeah, you know what? Let's get a film of this. Okay, she's got okay, boom. Now here you go to the doctor. I believe Baylor University, and maybe our producer can dig this up, and this is kind of hard to find. And Mike, you can tell me if I'm wrong with this, but a lot of military bases, the physical therapist is the gatekeeper. So when you go into the infirmary, the physical therapist, because obviously a lot of what's happening on a military base is, like sprained ankle, that kind of trauma related, right? So I think Baylor University did a study years ago about if the military base was actual money. So if you went in and had to go and boom, and with the physical therapist as the gatekeeper, they did this study, save like bazillions of dollars. Like it's just, but right now, who's the gatekeeper? So
I can't answer that for you because I was in the Marine Corps. And so, our docs are Navy. And us being Marines, we are the guinea pigs. So we'd have like some, butterball first lieutenant, second week on the job, get to practice on us. So I couldn't tell you that.
So, I mean, right now the medical system is you get hurt, you go to your primary care who knows nothing about musculoskeletal system. They'll say, okay, send you to the ortho. The ortho comes in. You might look at a physician assistant. The first thing they do is order the MRI. So we're $6,000 or $7,000 in medical costs into before anyone actually fixes it. Now, none of the people that can fix any of that, the ortho can't fix it, the primary care can't fix it, and especially, as far as I know, the MRI machine can't fix you, right? So eventually you come to me, but now it's 4, 5, 6 weeks later. That joint, that back is getting worse. It's not getting better, and then we're the only people that can fix it. But we are always battling as a profession to be like, look, let us look at it first. We can tell, okay, you know what? This is something bad. I mean, in my 26 years, I've sent people out that needed medical care because they're about to stroke. I have found cancer. So I know the differential diagnosis. I've had people come, well, I've got this left quadrant pain in my back. Well, how long has it been going on? Well, a year without any kind of injury. See ya. Boom, there's a tumor. You know what I mean? We have that ability, but we're on the bottom of the totem pole of the medical, unfortunately, the medical model.
So this sort of, I love our segues. Probably overused the word segue.
Wasn't that that's that 2-wheel thing, right? The segue, is that what they call it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, one of the questions, well, we kind of already got into it, but one of the questions we had was just that, is there a way for me to, we have a player that complains of injury a lot to the parents, and is, I should say, displays layperson symptoms of being a hypochondriac, right? So always afraid they're she's like, how can I, without spending, all this money, taking to even someone like you, how can I really tell if there's an injury? So now I think that, you explained a little bit about how you can tell and what discerns an actual injury from something that's not an injury versus something that's something worse, like a tumor or something along those lines. And I can say that on my side, there are things that we can see as a small, I'll give you a couple examples. For one, on the mechanical side, it's easier to see versus the metric side. And I'll get into that in a second, but from the mechanical side, sometimes we have, kids that can't load properly, so we have them in the hitting position. We try to get them to load and sink their hip a little bit, and they can't do it. And if we get a kid that just cannot do it, I'll usually take the bat out of their hands and go, okay, all right, forget about hitting, forget about anything. I just want you to do this motion with your body. That's how you can normally pick up, and they can do it, and they still can't do it. I'll have somebody else say, Kev, you should look at this kid and what's going on with his hips. Why can't he do this? Right. They can't turn their pelvis properly, right? They can't rotate. There's sometimes something wrong. And we've had kids with, hip flexor issues, have hit kids with groin issues and it's not always injury, sometimes just real tightness, but it's the same underlying issue of things aren't firing properly. Things aren't strong enough where they're supposed to be, just as a functioning human. And so I think there's definitely things that we can look at, that we can see. So, if it's a baseball related injury, a softball related injury, or just a sports related injury, I think if you have a good coach, a good instructor that knows what they're looking at, absolutely, you could ask them to sort of get their input. The second thing is the metrics. Metrics, we can tell if you, or potentially tell you have an injury, but we have to have a baseline of work from you first. I couldn't just put a kid on the metrics, like on a Rapsodo, for instance, the first time and go, oh, you're injured. But if that kid's been on the Rapsodo for a while and I all of a sudden see a dip in his exit velocity, I see a dip in her distance, right? Then yes, if it's something that's consistent and not just one session anomaly, but there's a little bit of a pattern, yeah, that tells me that there's potentially something going on with he or he or her.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I see, the stuff that you guys would see are these adolescents. You guys are working. I mean, your mean average of a kid is probably what, 12 and a half, 13 of taking the whole program, right?
Yeah, a little older, 14-ish. Yeah.
Right in the middle of this growth spurt, right? So, how does a parent know that their child is injured? Well,
it's a good point.
The first thing is the 4-letter word, pain. And that 4-letter word is literally like a 4-letter word, because your pain level and my pain level and your daughter's pain level and Ryan's daughter, they could all be different. But it should be an indicator. hey, this is hurting, right? And as we found from last podcast when we interviewed Ben Bills, he's got a 75% tear of his UCL, right? So obviously pain was a big indicator with him, but now he's throwing pain free, right? With that still not repaired UCL. Because so if you have pain in a joint, like you go to move and my shoulder, my elbow, that right now the light should start to go off and be like something could be wrong. The big muscles of your back, your butt, your hamstrings have that, we all know what that like next day muscle soreness. Like I turned 50 today, so I got out of bed and my entire body hurt until I got in the shower. So, what
you just
is.
did like you just did a
like getting out of bed was an athletic move for me today. So, with like the case of Allie, she's complaining of pain at the joint line, in the joint, that the light should go off, like something's wrong. Now, when you're talking about what you just gave the example of someone who can't load properly, you might be in the preventative side, like, that is not correct. Like if you're trying to get someone to do something and they physically can't, they might not be injured, but they're certainly on their way to be hurt because they can't do something. Everybody who comes to me, well, Junior threw a pitch on Saturday and boom, he had elbow pain. No. It was the 5,000 other pitches that Junior threw before that no one really saw. And then he threw one pitch, and that was the straw again that broke the camel's back.
Right. Yep. No, that makes total. And we do have, and I think that's why it's important that, if you have a player, if your son or daughter, or if you're a coach and you have these players, everybody should be assessed from a movement standpoint. They have to be able to
100%.
move athletically before you start asking them to do, elite level movements at high speed, because, if they can, if there is a weakness in there, if there's an underlying injury you don't know about, or if there's just general, weakness, say, or in certain muscles where they can't move properly, then as Kevin said, like you're about to walk into something and get that kid injured. So
some of these programs, Mike, I'll see, or even, they say, well, who do I, I'll get, calls from, well, I'm in Florida. Where do I go? How do I know, who's good and who's not?
Right.
We had brought this up before from, whole like instruction standpoint. Well, see if he can, some of these movements I see, like these, we'll put these videos out and I'm cringing like, oh my God, like, how is this? Like, this is a promotional video you're doing for your program and I'm cringing. You know what I mean? So, how do parents know like where to go? It's a real, I don't even have an answer because it's so difficult. But what I would say is if you're looking at an advertisement of someone's program or some strength coach or whomever, and they're talking about, we can, increase your speed, your exit velocity, your pitch velocity, and that's what they're advertising, rather than the other end, we can improve how you move to increase, right? So if they're not focused on, we're doing testing and we're really working on how you move, and when you get to move better, all this other stuff is going to happen. Run away. If that's not on there, run away.
I think especially to your point is if you see something that's, hey, we'll improve your velocity in 3 days or a week or whatever, especially when they put some finite timeline on it, like that's not happening. Not happening at all. I think you can absolutely, you will increase a person.
100%. When you improve your movement, right? You're like, it could be like, if you get the movement to click, everything else is going to click, and it could be like that.
Yep. And it also could be 9 months.
It could
be. Could be
Absolutely.
10 months. Right. All right. So we got to keep moving on. We have some, so this next question, I want to do that one first because it was already what we were talking about. And the second one shifts gears a little bit. And I just have to pull it up. I just pulled it up and then I got rid of it. Okay. All right. So it's about,
it'd be good, Mike, if we had, what are things called? A producer. Yeah. What's it? Oh, there he is. Hey, Ryan. Yep. What's up, buddy?
Yep. He was on this text. He was down this text chain. So we get this all the time. Speaking of Ryan, he gets it, and it's one of your favorite topics, Kevin, because you've brought it up in a couple of the podcasts, is showcases. So we get all the time. We get questions about, hey,
the showcase.
The showcase. Should I send my son to this showcase? What showcases are good? Which are bad? Blah blah. Are they money grabs, etc.? So yes, number one, to answer that question right off the top, are they money grabs? Yes, lots of them are absolutely money grabs. That doesn't mean that all of them are. There are good ones out there. In fact, there are ones, like it or not, that you kind of, if you really want to be seen, you almost have to go to. And some of the things that you just have to do. You want to get your metrics tested, and you want to have that go into a giant database. So that's one of the things you want to do. So instead of just speaking in generalities, I can tell you there's a couple of times you want to go to a showcase. The number one, is your player ready? Will they score well? Okay. So one of the ones is like the perfect games, right? The individual showcase, right? Those aren't bad to go to if you know you're going to perform well. If you're a sophomore and you know that, let's say, as a hitter, your exit velocity is above average. If you're a pitcher, your arm velocity is above average for your grade.
Right. If
you know you're going to score generally well, it's probably worth it to go and get that on record, because yes, coaches do look at that. Professional scouts do look at that stuff. So yeah, but is it for everybody? No. Like, you don't want to go there and not do well. It's going to have a negative effect on you, right? At
worst, that stays there, right? That score
stays there.
It stays there. It's like, it's like boom.
That's right.
Like your handicap in golf. You shoot a 90, it stays there.
It stays 90. And so the only way to correct that is by going another one,
right,
and performing better. And sometimes, the ones who are ready technically and what their capabilities are, they have to go again anyway. So those things. So yeah, it's not the worst idea. Now, and again, you have to be willing to spend that money too. Is it the only way to get looked at? Nope, of course not. I'll tell you something about recruiting in college. I'll talk about college recruiting first, real quickly. The number one way to do it is outreach. Okay. If you have a platform, we use a platform called Sports Recruits. I mentioned it because we love it. I think it's worth the money. It's not overly expensive.
Marketing, right? I mean, that's what you're doing.
Right? Yeah. Well, they have the database. They have every single head coach's email, and it's mostly assistant coaches and recruiting coordinators of every single college in the country, Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO, NAIA.
They have
all of them.
Wow.
Right. And so you can email directly. The other thing that I liked about their platform was that the email comes from the player. It doesn't come from a platform. So when the coach sees it, it's going to be, Johnny Smith at Gmail. Right. And it's like a Facebook page. There's a little link, and it'll show all the videos. So have video. Number one thing, you want to be seen, you have to have video of yourself. You have to. If there's any metrics that you have, especially if they're outstanding, have that somewhere in there, and reach out to colleges. Do your research on some schools. Academically and athletically, make sure they match. Talk to your coach, see if they might be a match, and reach out and get them to come see you in the spring and summer. That's the number one way. But last thing I'll say is, speaking this is about showcases. The other showcases that I think are worthwhile is, if indeed you do reach out to a college, they like you, there's a mutual connection there, they might ask you to come to one of their showcases. Go to it. Especially if it's one of your top 3 schools, go to it. Go and get in front of those coaches. Now, one thing is, we have kids, Kevin, that just go hopping around all these things. They
right.
And that's just a waste of money, because schools do use these as boosters for their southern trips, especially the smaller schools. They have to raise money to go south, and they use these showcases and clinics for that. But if it's a school that you really like, and you're in communication, and that they're going to give you an actual look when you get there, 100% worth it. But aside from those two things, yes, a lot of them are just money grabs. They're boosters for something, or they're there just to rake in some money.
So now I have a question, for both of you, that kind of brings together a couple things. We talked about the Major League Physical. I've interviewed Dan Schlereth on my podcast, who's been in your facility. The Major League Physical is, literally bend over, turn your head, and cough. It's horrendous, right?
Yep.
That was like my job interview here.
Yeah, same thing, right? Yeah. So, I'm going to ask this question, but because I already know the answer to this. So, what's the measure of someone's health? Like how does a college know that they're getting a healthy player? You know, I work with a kid at a Division I school last year, 2 or 3 years removed from a national championship, and they had 6 guys out with arm and elbow injuries. And, you know, the kid's mom was very astute about, very student of the baseball, right? I said, wow, that's like, what are they doing there? What are they doing at this college? Oh my God. And she said something, she's like, well, how did they know they weren't injured before they got there? And I was like, wow, that like blew my mind. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So how do these colleges know that these kids aren't injured before they got there?
It's a great question.
Go there.
I'll tell you, the ones, and it's such a huge risk for some of these guys, because what I was going to say, and it popped in my head as you were talking about this, it's probably happening in high school. So in high school, these kids are playing travel ball. They're being right.
Well,
they're being recruited for more travel. We have players all the time from our teams trying to be, other programs trying to recruit them away. Come play for our summer team, or we're going to do this tournament, that tournament. And if
isn't there like travel ball, and then there's like there could be another elite travel team? Before where kids just go and play, right? They're not part of a team. It's just part of this, like, they
that's
meet
right.
that day. Okay, yeah.
Well, some teams are just the programs are built that way, but because they're built that way, they'll try to, like, if they see another arm out there, that look, all they want to do is go win tournaments in the summer. Right. Because, they get to live vicariously through the kids or whatever. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a big deal to them.
Sure.
So, they'll keep recruiting. And that's the problem. If you have an arm that's a superior arm, that's an elite level arm, your high school coach is going to want to use you every minute he gets or she gets. And so is your travel coach. And so is all these other programs outside of your own trying to get you to come throw for them. So the better programs that recruit these kids, to answer your question, Kevin, is they stay on top of the kid and they say, hey, I want you to send me your line every single time you pitch. And I think a big reason why they want them doing that isn't just to see the numbers, but to see how often is he throwing, right? And how much is he throwing? Because it's a problem. And
these kids are definitely throwing more than once a week in summer, right? I mean, they're throwing.
Oh,
they gotta be throwing
for sure.
A minimum of every 4 days, maybe more.
Correct. Yep. Correct. And in high school before that, especially if there's, some state championship run, I think I mentioned a player we had before. In fact, he was just in recently to visit, a kid who, and it killed me because he had already committed to a very high level D2 school before ever pitching for varsity. He goes out for high school again. I tell him, his name is Dylan. I go, Dylan, why bother going out for you don't need to. Just keep training, get ready for next fall. Well, you'll play in the summer, you'll have a summer season, you'll keep your innings, low. But he wanted to show it to him. He wanted to prove it to him. So he goes out and he more than proved it to him because he ended up being their number one guy. And I remember at one point going for the state champion, they were pitching him, on 2 days rest, like more than once. And sure enough, he shows up to his college in the fall.
He's hurt.
And he's hurt. He hurt himself.
So now what happens? I don't know enough about that. So and you can probably might go through division. Let's stick with divisions 1 and 2. So division 1, I'm pretty sure you show up. Let's just pick a school. You show up to the University of Florida.
Yep.
Hurt. What happens to could you lose your scholarship? Like, could you get bounced back? Could you lose your scholarship?
Technically, but you won't. They'll keep you, and especially because look, they have an investment in you. They can redshirt you that year, and they still have 4 years of you anyway. And it's just something that's become such a part of the norm that they almost expect it at this point. They're going to have a couple guys where that happens to. I think they know that these kids are going to try to reach the next level in the fall because they're trying to impress that school.
Well, can schools afford to? I mean, let's just say that. I mean, what's a recruiting class in baseball? 9, 10, right? 10 freshmen, more. What will they bring in?
Depending on the school, let's 2 dozen.
All right, so we've got a dozen kids, right? And let's just
2 dozen.
All right, so let's say of that 2 dozen recruits, and they're on 50% scholarship, but now 6 of them are hurt and they can't play. So you've got to replace those with other. Like, how do schools? I mean, there has to be at some point a money issue with hey, we're giving free rides to these kids, and then you're asking the sports accounting office for more scholarships because these guys are hurt. I mean, won't the buck stop here at some point?
Yes, it will. And that's one of the reasons why you hardly ever see full rides anymore. If you see a
Right.
full ride, it's going to be an arm, and it's going to be a power rank school who just has a lot more money to hand out. But
Sure.
you could have a really high level D2's lower level D1 school, like non-SEC, non-ACC,
Right.
like, and they might have 4, 5 full scholarships. That's it.
That's it.
And so, yeah, and then they don't want to use that all on one or two guys.
Oh,
They try to
person,
spread
right.
that out. So you get, you hear, and it's kind of funny because you hear our kids all the time, like, oh, I hear this kid, some opponent we're playing. Oh, I hear he's got a full ride to
Right.
this.
There's no such thing.
There's really no
Yeah,
such thing.
not in the baseball program.
Nope.
Right.
Nope. Softball for sure. Right.
Sure.
Not
softball
baseball.
does. So talk to me about that because
Yeah, softball, and I think part of it was Title IX.
Title IX, which is great. We all have daughters, right? We're very pro Title IX.
Yep. But a lot of the softball programs, I know there's a local school, and I don't want to name it, but there's a local school where, the baseball gets a lot more of like the facilities type of stuff.
Yep.
And they don't get anything on the scholarship end. Softball gets a bit of the opposite. They might not have as fancy a facility, but they have a ton of scholarships. But
sure.
Yeah, but softball often, and the roster sizes are smaller. I know a lot of these baseball programs that are carrying 32 to 40 people more sometimes on the roster. So there's less to go around as well. So I think that's another reason why softball gets. But typically, again, non-SEC, non-ACC
Sure.
we're talking about here. Typically, softball will probably have a little bit more money to go around than baseball.
Now, do you guys at your facility, this question, do you guys do obviously you're going to take your SATs, you have, an SAT prep. Do you guys do any kind of, showcase prep? Like, will you do anything like that? Do you have a program like, someone's going to do a perfect game in, I don't know when they are, let's just say June 1st.
Yep.
What do you have that would prep them so that when they go there June 1st, they're ready to hammer it home?
That's a good question. Pretty much everything we do week in and week out is showcase prep. Now, it's not
everything we do.
It's not to prep the showcase, but it's just that's it's they're going to get your metrics. They want to measure. They want to they want to see you hit. It's going to be 8 to 10 swings. They want to see you field 5 or 6 fly balls from the outfield, so you throw to the plate, etc. So all the things that we do are pretty much for that now, and we do. If we have like a big one coming up and the weather will accommodate, we'll take kids out. I'll personally take kids outside and go through the steps. The biggest thing is and that's a good question because
now, so is this something that's unique to you, or do you think all these programs do something like that?
Not all, but I think there's definitely programs out there that will do something like that. I think the best thing you can do though is it's advice. It's to educate your kids on this, which we do. Often, very often, educate them about the showcases and then have them go to one that they really don't care as much about. Say, hey, look, if you're a D2, D1, go to a D3 one, see what it's like. Because the biggest one is getting used to waiting around. You got to wait around a lot.
So what happened? There is waiting, like I'm sure you can't pitch, swing, and play the outfield at the same time. So take us through like what, in real simple, like how long they last, like what is it? What's it like?
Yep. So most of them are at least 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how many kids will be at one of these things? Like,
depends. At like one of the college ones, if a college is putting it on, they typically won't take more than 50. A lot of times they'll take like 30, 35. But some of the bigger schools, the D1s, they have a huge staff and they'll have their players working them. They might take 80 kids.
Now, what about one of these like for profit, like the PBR, right, or the perfect game? What do
Hundreds.
they take?
Hundreds
on one field, 2 fields.
It's usually more than one field. They'll have them at these complexes, like the one in Northborough we have in Massachusetts.
Yep.
There'll be complexes like that they'll form on.
I gotta be how many? So, all right, how many kids do you think? 100, 100? How many? At
least
like,
100.
How many? Who's watching me? Like who's like measuring me?
So that's the thing. So now that we're in the
That's
world
a lot
of metrics,
of kids. Like you talking there's 30, 40 staff members there? I doubt that, right?
There'll be a lot. You'd be surprised because because they'll get local high school kids to come and work stations. Now, working a station isn't sitting there with an analytics sheet and mark, giving a scale of 20.
How many decision makers or evaluators are there? I guess is probably the question.
There's less now than there used to be because it's all metrics, and what they'll do is they're going to get metrics, they're going to get video.
Yep.
And they're going to put that in their database and put that on their site or their social media and let the college coaches see it. That's all they care about. Right. And you will have college coaches at these things as well, watching live. And that, of course, is one of the draws. And look, showcases. Now that's the individual showcases, the showcase tournaments, the things that we'll go to a lot as a program. We'll take our teams to these.
Yeah.
They are great. Now, what the average parent thinks that showcase is you show up, you're ready to play a game at one of these fields, and there's going to be 30 college coaches behind the backstop with radar guns and clipboards. That's not how it is. You're probably not going to see a college coach. There might be one or two of them there, but you won't be able to pick them out. You won't even know where they are. Why they are good to go to, however, is they draw tons of college coaches. And the reason why they draw tons of college coaches is it allows a coach, like let's say that we go to like the WWBA down in Georgia, which is a really big one.
Yep.
A coach can see, instead of having to hop around the country looking for his recruits, he'll be able to see 7 or 8 of his recruits all in that one place. Because everybody goes to it. And so that's why we go to it, because, we'll have kids and say, hey, look, let this coach know you're going to be. And they ask a lot of times, hey, you're going to be in Georgia on the 17th. You're going to be in WWBA. Yep. Okay, great. Give me a schedule and I'll come see you. So there is value for these in these things for real and for sure. But, you just got to be, you got to do your homework a little bit. You got to ask, talk to if you trust your travel coach, and you should, talk to he or her about the showcase you want to go to, do your homework on a little bit. And because some of them are worth it, many are not.
Okay. That's cool. Good. All right.
Ryan,
so where are we doing now? What do we got? What's our next segment?
Well, we have one more segment.
One more question.
And so this is, nope, the questions are done, but we have, our next segment is why would you do that?
I love that. Why
would you do that? Why would you do that?
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to bring something up, and I do not have the video of it because I think the actual video was taken down. So
that's never a good thing.
This person may have gotten hammered on it, but I've seen this before. And Ryan, I know you've seen this too. It's the rapid swing BP, or the front toss and this was overhand, but a short overhand. So the guy's like 12 feet away, this coach, And for people listening, I'm going to try to describe this. I'm going to show you on video right? But he's, what's that?
So
3 throws per
meaning
second.
The guy's winging the pitches out there. It's not
As
like
a hitter, you're here.
Yeah,
here.
Just your swing, and you're trying to pull back really fast so you get back in time to swing at the next pitch. It's like 3 pitches per second. It's crazy.
So,
and
how does that?
Anybody? It does.
Eats help, loading, power, everything that we talk, potential energy, all that stuff that's required to hit.
It's promoting piss poor muscle memory. You cannot reset and get to where you need to be and have a sustainable, repeatable motion if you're doing it that way.
Guys, I'm just going to ask a question. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I know this new thing's out from Facebook called Oculus. At any point, was this some sort of Oculus type of? Were they wearing head? Was this? Was it some sort of virtual reality? First person shooter game? Is that what they're called?
Oh yeah.
Was that what you guys are watching?
No, this was legit real. This is legit real. And the Oculus has a really cool thing out now, but we'll talk about that another time. I
heard those things are awesome. Not to promote anything.
Amazing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
How much are those things? One of my patients just got one. Like, oh my gosh, this is so great.
They're not a lot of money.
No,
$200-$300.
Yeah,
and you can do. Like all kinds of stuff. I got to check it out.
Well, the baseball one is something that we sign up for. Which, Ryan, we have to get that thing completed. It's something called Win Reality.
Could I use that for my practice? Is there stuff in there that I could probably
absolutely everything? If you're an astronomer, and it doesn't matter. So
yeah. Okay, cool.
So, but this was not Win Reality. This was actual reality. And the reason I wanted to bring this one up in this segment is because I can usually formulate some idea of what the intent was in a drill, right?
Yep.
But one of the things that we always say, and Ryan knows this in our facility, is that practice makes not perfect, it makes permanent.
Permanent.
Right. Exactly.
My line. That's okay.
We've been saying that forever, so that could have been. I don't know. Look, I don't claim to invent any of this stuff.
My martial arts,
all of my stuff from somewhere.
No, it's great. It's so true. It's true when you think about permanent, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you're building muscle memory, and so whatever,
Absolutely.
and whatever swing you just took,
yep,
that's one swing towards your permanent swing.
Correct.
Make sure it's a good one, right? Quantity quality over quantity, and so I can't, I can usually figure out what the intent is on some of these drills. I know even the toss behind, right? The front toss from behind the batter from the catcher's perspective, as stupid as that is, I know what the intent is. It's poor and it's ill planned, but it's right. I understand. This one, the rapid swing, I don't understand. I mean, are you in a rush? Are you is there a time limit on this game? Like,
oh, it might be.
I don't understand. Like, literally.
Only thing that makes sense is that it's a hand-eye thing. But again, I mean, that's not going to do.
But it's not even training hand-eye because you don't do. It's not training hand-eye in the model it's supposed to, like in game situation. Because who's doing that? Right.
Is it like 0-2 count training, like where you just got to protect yourself and put your bat? I don't know, but it is silly.
That's crazy.
It happens a lot. And again, I know I knock drills a lot, and I do that intentionally because I think most drills just are garbage. They don't work. Working on the swing and working on actually hitting the baseball is the best thing you could do with a trained professional who knows how to teach a proper swing. That said, some drills do work, right? I sometimes isolate the bottom hand and work on bottom hand path. Right. I sometimes isolate the top hand. I even sometimes do the high T drill. Right. Which, because you got kids that are dropping their hands, which a lot of the softball players do for whatever reason, they drop their hands way low. So put the tee up high, but there has to be a purpose for your drill. No. There has to be a legitimate purpose for your drill. And even then, don't spend 20 minutes on a drill because they're just going to create that muscle memory in that drill. So that's all I have to say about that. Ryan, I know that, you feel the same way about and so I don't know. It boggles the mind that with all the information that's out there today that we're still seeing that rapid fire.
It's the whole social media stuff. And I'm sure wherever you saw that, it got a bunch of likes. So it means a bunch of people said, "Wow, that looks cool. I'm going to try to do that." And that's why this podcast is here, to be like, no, that's stupid, and call it out for what it is. It's dumb. It does nothing. But again, like you said,
why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Exercises, drills, everything needs to have a purpose and a desired result. And,
right.
What's the purpose of that? And what's the result? Like, what are you trying to get? Right. And if you don't have those two things, like you said even, it's behind toss, the result might be this, but is that the way to get there? Is that the purpose? No. So why would you do that?
You're maybe fixing one problem, you're creating four others, and that's the problem with it. And so the last thing I'll say about it is that, and I know we've said this ad nauseum, but it's worth repeating. Ask why. Have the courage to ask why. If you're a player, have your player ask, even if your kid's 12, ask what they're doing in sessions and make sure that they understand why they're doing things. And look, if you have a good coach or instructor, they're happy to answer why.
Of course.
They're happy
or they should be telling the student or the parent, we're doing this because they're giving the why automatically to get to a certain desired result. That's it.
For sure.
Well, gentlemen, we've come to another end of our time here on our podcast. Another good show. I think the listeners probably learned a little about a bunch of different topics.
Yeah, touching a few.
So
things
remember, everybody, we are here every Thursday at 11:30 Eastern Time. You can find us streaming live at proveitlive.com. We are on most major podcast holders, platforms. Is that the word, platforms? So that would be Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and as of today, we are on iHeartRadio. So I want to thank our producer Ryan, my co-host Mike, and I'm Kevin McGovern.
Jason Tesler
for our special guest today, Jason Tesler, a super fan. And I thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.